I wasn't supposed to be home that day. My flight got canceled, meetings got shuffled, and for once luck seemed on my side. I pulled up to my cabin thinking I'd surprise the quiet, maybe make some coffee, open the windows, and let that mountain air roll in. It was supposed to be peaceful. But the second I stepped inside, something felt off. The air was warm, damp, and then I heard it, faint at first, but unmistakable. Running water. I froze in the doorway. The place had been locked up for 2 weeks. I lived alone. There shouldn't have been any sound. My first thought was a leak. My second was something worse. I set my bag down slow, every muscle tensing. That steady rush of water was coming from the bathroom. My bathroom. I grabbed the nearest thing with weight, an old fireplace poker, and crept down the hallway. The sound got louder, closer. The water stopped just as I reached the door. I pushed it open, and my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. There was a teenager standing in my shower, wrapped in my towel. Brushing his teeth like he lived there, he screamed. I screamed. He bolted. And that's when I heard more voices, coming from my kitchen. What I found next changed everything. But let me start at the beginning. Before we dive in, let me know where you're listening from today. When you picture coming home after 2 weeks away, you probably think about comfort, the smell of pine floors, that soft creak your front door makes, the sound of quiet that only your own house can give. That's exactly what I expected when I pulled up to my cabin that morning. The air was still, the gravel under my boots crunched in rhythm, and even the birds sounded like they were whispering. It was my place, private, calm, the little corner of the world I'd worked my whole life for. But peace doesn't knock before it disappears. I had just set my bags down when I heard it, running water. Not dripping, not leaking, running. It was steady, rhythmic. From the bathroom. My bathroom. At first I thought maybe a pipe burst. Then I remembered. I'd shut off the main valve before leaving. My chest tightened. I grabbed the fireplace poker, feeling ridiculous and serious all at once, and moved down the hall as quietly as I could. When I pushed open that door, the last thing I expected to see was a teenage boy standing in my shower. Naked except for one of my towels, brushing his teeth like this was just another Tuesday. We locked eyes. He screamed. I screamed. The toothbrush hit the floor. He bolted past me so fast I barely had time to move. Before I could even process what was happening, I heard voices, more of them. Laughter, talking. From my kitchen. I walked out of the hall and froze. There, sitting at my dining table, were 3 people. A woman with perfectly ironed khaki shorts, a man with a beer in hand, and a younger girl scrolling through her phone like she owned the place. My kitchen smelled like bacon and fresh coffee. My coffee. The woman looked up at me, all smiles. "Oh, you must be Mark, you're early." "Early?" I stared at her, gripping the poker like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. "Who are you, and why are you in my house?" She blinked as if I'd asked her something rude at a dinner party. "I'm Karen," she said, standing with practiced grace. "From the HOA. We're just staying here temporarily while we handle some community matters." I laughed, the kind of laugh that comes out more like disbelief. "You're what?" Her husband stood too, puffing his chest a little. "There's been confusion about property lines. We needed access to verify certain details." "Nothing personal? Access?" I repeated. "This is private property." "You broke in." Karen crossed her arms, that smile curdling. "Technically, under HOA bylaws, this residence falls within our jurisdiction. You were unresponsive to correspondence regarding community inspections." I stared at her, stunned. "You mean the junk mail I didn't answer?" She sighed as if I were being dramatic. "You'll want to be careful how you talk to me." "Mark, we've already contacted the sheriff to straighten this out." And then she did the one thing I didn't think she would. She called 911 right in front of me. "This is Karen Whitfield." "HOA president," she said, pacing my kitchen. "We have an aggressive man trespassing in one of our managed properties." My jaw dropped. I could barely form words. "Aggressive? This is my house!" Her husband motioned to me like I was some stray dog. "Let's just wait outside, Karen." I followed them out, trying to keep my voice calm. "You realize what you're doing is illegal, right? You broke into my home." But she didn't flinch. "No, you're in violation. The HOA warned you about the inspection schedule. You refused to comply." Minutes later, I saw the red and blue lights flash across the driveway. My stomach sank. 2 deputies stepped out, one hand already resting on his belt. Karen was quick, her tone syrupy sweet. "Officers, thank goodness." He came at us shouting. "We just wanted to verify occupancy." I opened my mouth to speak, but the older deputy raised his hand. "Sir, step aside. We just need to get a clear picture here." "Clear picture?" I said, exhaling sharply. "I live here. Check my license, my deed, my mail, it's all inside." The younger deputy looked between us, unsure. "Let's just calm down." Karen nodded solemnly like she was the reasonable one. "We tried to reason with him, but he's been non-compliant for weeks." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And when the deputy turned to me and said, "Sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to stay still while we check this out," I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I watched in silence as they escorted me outside. Handcuffs and all, while Karen's teenage son filmed it on his phone, snickering. The humiliation burned more than anger ever could. It took 20 minutes, 20 long, humiliating minutes, for one of the deputies to finally come back holding my ID and house documents. He frowned, glancing between me and Karen. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "this house is registered under his name. Not the HOA's. Karen's face didn't move, but her voice cracked just slightly. "Well, there must be some confusion." The deputy looked unimpressed. "The only confusion I see is you folks breaking and entering. You're lucky he's not pressing charges right now." I stood there, wrists red from the cuffs, watching her confidence drain like color from her face. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. When they finally took the handcuffs off, I didn't say a word. I just looked at her, calm, steady. She couldn't hold my gaze. As the deputies led her family off my property, she turned one last time and hissed, "This isn't over." I smiled, small and quiet. "You're right," I said. "It isn't." That night, sitting on my porch with a fresh cup of coffee and a camera pointed at every corner of my land, I replayed every second of the day in my head. This wasn't some misunderstanding. This was a move. Planned. Deliberate and arrogant, and if Karen Whitfield thought she could twist her fake rules to take what was mine, she was about to learn what happens when you pick a fight with someone who knows how to stand still and watch you fall. The next few days after the shower incident, as my son jokingly called it, were strangely quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean peace, more like the pause before a storm. The police had confirmed what I already knew. I owned the property outright. Karen and her family had no right to set foot inside my home, much less move in. But if you've ever dealt with someone like her, you know, they don't stop when they're wrong. They double down. By Tuesday morning, I had 3 letters in my mailbox from the HOA, all official looking, all stamped with that smug logo, Silver Oaks. Homeowners Association? The first one fined me. $200 for non-compliance with community access inspections. The second warned of unauthorized security cameras visible from the street. The third, my favorite, claimed I was in violation for creating a hostile environment for HOA representatives. I read them twice, then laughed loudly. The kind of laugh that comes from disbelief, not humor. Karen wasn't done trying to win. She just switched tactics, but I wasn't the same guy she'd caught off guard in his own home a few days ago. This time, I was ready. I spent that evening compiling every bit of evidence I had, the security footage from the day they broke in. The audio from my smart home hub that caught her voice saying, "This is HOA business." The body cam timestamp from the deputy who verified my ownership. It wasn't hard to put the story together. It was all right there in pixels and paperwork. By the end of the night, I had a neat folder on my laptop labeled the HOA files. I didn't plan to use it unless I had to, but deep down, I already knew I'd need it sooner rather than later. Sure enough, 2 days later, a notice appeared on my door. Mandatory HOA board hearing attendance required. Allegations of non-compliance. The hearing was set for Saturday morning at the community center. I remember standing there on my porch, reading that letter while sipping my coffee and thinking, this woman really has no off switch, but fine. If she wanted a show, I'd give her one, just not the way she expected. Saturday came fast. The community center was packed tighter than I'd ever seen it. Folding chairs lined the walls, and people stood in the back, neighbors who had probably heard the rumors by now. Karen was at the front, sitting behind a table like a queen on trial who didn't realize her crown had already fallen. The rest of the HOA board sat beside her, uncomfortable and quiet. When I walked in, heads turned. A few neighbors gave me small nods, not friendly, but curious, like they wanted to see how this all ended. Karen leaned back in her chair, gave me that same fake smile from my kitchen, and said into the mic, "Mr. Lawson, thank you for joining us. We've had several reports of your ongoing non-compliance with HOA regulations." I didn't sit down. "Before we start," I said, "can I ask one thing? Are we recording this meeting?" One of the board members nodded. "Yes, we are." "Good," I said. "That makes this easier." Karen's smile twitched. "Excuse me?" I pulled a flash drive from my pocket and held it up. "Because I brought something for the record." "Too." A quiet murmur spread across the room. I plugged it into the projector, and within seconds, the wall behind her came alive with footage, my front door camera. There she was, Karen Whitfield, standing at my porch, holding her clipboard, looking every bit the self-appointed enforcer. Her voice echoed through the speakers. "This is HOA business. We have the right to access the property." Then came the sound of the door opening, and her family walking in. You could hear me in the background, faintly, asking, "Who are you?" And her reply, sharp and clear, "You're early. We're staying here temporarily." The silence in that room was heavy enough to feel. I let it play all the way to the part where the deputies showed up, verified ownership, and uncuffed me. The board members looked like they were watching a car crash in slow motion, unable to look away but wishing they could. When the video ended, I turned back to her. "Now, about those fines," I said evenly. "Would you like to explain how trespassing and filing false police reports fit under HOA bylaws?" She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The vice president of the HOA, a tall man named Paul who'd been silent till now, finally spoke up. "Karen, you said this was an administrative mix-up." Karen's hands trembled slightly as she gathered her papers. "It was. I mean, this footage could be misinterpreted." "Misinterpreted?" I said. "You moved into my house, Karen. You made breakfast in my kitchen." The laughter that broke out from the back of the room wasn't cruel. It was disbelief. People who'd been afraid to say anything for years were finally seeing her for what she was. Paul looked around the room, then back at her. "Karen, we need to vote." Her eyes widened. "Vote? You can't..." But it was too late. Hands went up around the table. 1, 2, 3, 4. The majority. Paul cleared his throat. "Effective immediately, you're removed from the HOA board pending further investigation." The color drained from her face. "You can't do this," she hissed. "I am the HOA. I looked at her, calm as a still pond. "Not anymore. The rest happened fast." A few neighbors came up to me afterward, offering apologies, the kind people give when they realize they stood by too long. Others simply nodded, a quiet acknowledgement that maybe someone standing up had given them permission to breathe again. Within a week, Karen's resignation was filed voluntarily. A month later, she was facing legal trouble for falsifying HOA documentation and misusing community funds. I didn't attend that hearing. I didn't need to. I had my peace, my land, my quiet mornings again, and every time I passed by the community center, now run by a completely new, much humbler board, I couldn't help but smile. Justice didn't come through shouting or revenge. It came through patience, truth, and a few well-timed video files. That night, I sat on my porch with Scout lying by my feet, watching the sun fade behind the hills. The air was still again, like it had been before all this madness. And as I took a slow sip of coffee, I thought about how strange it is that power always looks invincible right up until the moment it collapses. Karen thought she ran the neighborhood. Turns out she never even understood it. And me? I didn't need to fight her. I just had to show the truth, because when the light finally hits the lies, they burn themselves down.